Hey guys, today I'm going to tell you 5 huge differences between Japan and the United States in their response to coronavirus, COVID-19. And stay tuned toward the end because I have a surprise. I'm going to show you something Japan sent everyone in the mail. Hi, I'm Jason Buck and welcome to the Jason Buck channel. I'm a singer, vlogger, actor, and student of political science. I'm going to show you 5 huge differences that you may not know between the United States and Japan in their response to the coronavirus. Also, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already and hit that little bell to get notifications. And share this video with someone if you think they might find it interesting. So let's get started. Number 1, testing problems. Okay, so the US right now is doing a lot of testing, which is wonderful. But when it first started, the coronavirus, the testing had some issues. The tests weren't actually working and there weren't enough tests. There were a lot of problems and private manufacturers couldn't even make tests because of certain rules and, you've heard about that. But in Japan, we didn't have the same problem. I live in Japan. I used to live in the United States, so I know a little bit about both sides. But in Japan, we didn't have the same testing problems in the beginning, so we were able to test early on. Now, maybe not enough. That's what many people would argue, and it's true. Japan does not test as much for coronavirus as the US. The US has really amped it up, and Japan has been more selective. Some say more focused on who they want to test and when and why and what you have to, how to qualify for a test. I went into my own clinic here in Tokyo, where my doctor is, and I just happened to ask, hey, can I get tested for coronavirus? And they said, no. Why? Is something wrong? And I'm like, no, I was just wondering. So apparently, it's just not, you can't just get tested. You have to have symptoms. And this is, I've read about this and I'll show you an article. You have to have symptoms and you have to go through your doctor and they have to get the test approved by the government, some medical body that approves the test, and then that person can get tested. So it's a little bit complicated, but yeah. So some people say because there's less testing in Japan that there are less cases documented, which is a very good argument. Because the US does a lot more testing, there's a lot more cases that we have proof of. And you've heard Donald Trump talk about it too. He said some stupid thing recently like, well, one of our staff, she was always negative every time she tested, and then somehow she turned positive or got a positive result. And I don't know why testing is useful if you're just gonna turn up positive one day. Well, that is the point of testing. I'm gonna show you a graph. This graph shows number of tests per confirmed cases. And if you look at this graph, you'll be able to see that the US has done way more tests and have way more cases, and Japan has done way less tests and has way less cases. So that does support the argument that perhaps that's why there are more cases in the US, because there could be just as many in Japan, just not enough testing to confirm them. However, I will say more about that later. Let's go to number 2. The number 2 huge difference between the US and Japan, social distancing. So in the US, like Japan, we declared a state of emergency. And in Japan, like the US, the power went to the states, and in Japan it's prefectures, pretty similar to states. They both have governors. And the governors and their staff make decisions on what social distancing rules to apply to their people in their prefecture or state. So in the US, they were able to make their rules per state, sometimes by city, same here, and they were enforceable by law in the US, meaning there were consequences if you didn't follow the social distancing rules. So just to give you an example, I wanted to show you some states in the US and what their rules were, just briefly, like Arkansas I got, and Hawaii, Honolulu. You can just take a look here on the screen, just showing you kind of what rules they made and how they're punishable by law. In Japan, on the other hand, it just wasn't punishable by law. I also have a link to an interesting article from Business Insider that is about the lockdowns by state. So if you're curious, you can look and see. However, in Japan, it's more like a request or a recommendation made by the leaders of the prefectures. So like here in Tokyo, for example, that's where I live. The governor said, we request, not punishable by law, there is no penalty, but they request that you close your business if it's non-essential, that you don't gather in large groups, only go out if you have to, like, grocery shopping or something like that. And businesses, restaurants, they can stay open, but must close at 8 p.m. However, people can still go inside the restaurants. You can walk around here now and you'll see people sitting in restaurants. Not as many, definitely very few compared to before, but still it is possible to go eat in a restaurant. Unlike many places in the US where that was made illegal, so definitely a difference there. But there are some cultural differences between the US and Japan that make social distancing more natural in Japan. Because you know how in the US people shake hands and they hug and sometimes they kiss, these are greetings. In Japan, it's not so common to be touching as a greeting. Bowing, as you know, probably you've seen it, bowing is more customary here in Japan, and less hugging and touching and kissing. That's just not as common. So you could say there is some natural social distancing in Japan compared to the US, just because of cultural differences. Now, let's go to number 3. Number 3. The US had a crazy president, who was spouting off nonsense about Lysol, bleach, internal lighting. What the hell? We didn't have that here in Japan. Japan's prime minister, which is like the president, Shinzo Abe is his name. So Prime Minister Abe, he didn't say anything outlandish or ridiculous like the US president does about coronavirus, which could be dangerous because people listen to their leader, the leader of their country. So, Trump really, I'm sorry, my opinion is he needs to shut up when it comes to giving advice on coronavirus. But one thing they had in common is both leaders did promote a medication. However, Prime Minister Abe in Japan, he did not say that it was going to work any miracles or that it was a definite cure. Abe was supporting a medicine called Ativan, and the government has put funding into it. And, President Trump was promoting another medication, it's hydro something, what is it called? Hydroxychloroquine. Trump was promoting hydroxychloroquine, however you say that. And that really took off. People started taking it. It might be effective, but more studies need to be done. Number 4, let's talk about the difference between the number of cases and deaths in Japan and the United States. According to the data that we have, Japan has had far less deaths and cases compared to the United States. A really interesting statistic is the total mortality rate, meaning in this case, death for any reason, any illness, any death at all in the country, okay? If you compare these two. If you look at Tokyo, the gigantic place, if you look at the mortality rate compared to last year, deaths for any cause are down this year during the coronavirus period compared to last year, which means that there are actually less deaths in Tokyo than there were last year, even though we had coronavirus. Now, of course, if you look at the US, on the other hand, you can see quite a spike, unfortunately, in total mortality rate. And take a look at this chart. You'll see right around April-May period, the deaths really go up. And this is for any reason. But you could say that this supports the argument that there really were less deaths in Japan than there were in the US because of coronavirus. However, I am comparing Tokyo to the US. I didn't compare the whole country. So, but still, it supports. It's not proof, but it supports that argument. You also may know that cases overall, we've had far less cases in Tokyo, in Japan overall, than we have and deaths that we know are related to coronavirus than the United States has. So actually, in Japan, the curve has come down quite a bit, so much so that almost every prefecture here, which again is like a state in the United States, almost every prefecture has been lifted from the state of emergency. Tokyo and Hokkaido are two of the ones left, because we have not yet hit the low number we need to remove the state of emergency. And that number is something like 0.05% per 1 million or something like that. Once we hit that number, and we're getting close, because yesterday we only had 3 new cases of coronavirus, and the last 4 days or 5 days we've had less than 10 every day new cases. So definitely that's Tokyo getting better, and Japan is a reflection of that too. If you look at the numbers for the whole country, also way down. So it looks like we've gotten over the curve, and we're at the end, the bottom. Hopefully there's not a second wave. But the US, unfortunately, has not come down, or maybe slowly coming down, but we're still waiting for that to get over the curve. So good luck to you guys in the US. Number 5, the 5th huge difference between the US and Japan with coronavirus is something called masks. Now, you know, in Japan, people wear masks pretty much all the time. Not all the time, but a lot of people wear masks. If you just walk around, not during coronavirus, just any time, way before this, people in Japan tend to be more considerate. If they're feeling sick or they don't want to get sick, they will put a mask on, and it helps protect them and other people. So, you know, because of that already in the culture, I think that may have something to do with the difference between the US and Japan in coronavirus. Because if people are already wearing masks quite a lot, and they were, and now they wear them even more because of coronavirus, that had to have some preventative effect, right? I would think that's a good argument for why there are less cases in Japan. In the US, people don't wear masks as much, and I know that firsthand from living there, and you probably do too if you're there. You know, we don't tend to wear masks in the US. Sometimes, but not like Japan. Also, and this applies to both countries, there was a shortage of masks and other medical gear, you know, masks and gowns for medical staff, but that happened in both countries, so I wouldn't really say it's a difference, or at least not significant. And then both countries addressed that and tried to fix it. There is one huge difference I want to tell you about. This is the surprise. What I got in the mail from the Japanese government. Now, this went to everyone. The government sent this out to everyone. And you know what it was? A mask. This is a cloth mask. I don't know if you're going to see this. Anyway, it's a cloth mask. You can reuse it. The government decided to send these to every household in Japan. Can you believe that? And it's reusable. And you know, if you didn't have a mask for some reason, or there was a mask shortage, they sent these out to make sure that everyone could wear a mask to protect themselves and other people. And I think it was a great idea. And I wish the United States would do the same. So bravo Japan on that one. Seriously great. Some other similarities just between the two countries. Both countries sent out stimulus checks, except the US sent a slightly higher stimulus check than Japan. The US was $1,200, at least that's what I got. And then Japan was 1,000 yen, which is maybe 900 something dollars, almost $1,000. That's just a side note in case you wanted to know. But one thing that I noticed as an American is I don't see many places offering help to artists or musicians or actors like myself who need help during COVID-19. And the US has a lot of charity organizations that are trying to help people. So it may be a language barrier, but I can't find that kind of assistance in Japan very easily. There's very little that I can find. But then again, maybe I just don't know how to search well on Google. But the US, there's tons. But for an artist like me who's in Japan, it's difficult to qualify for any of that aid. So yeah, if you want to help me, this is not what this video is for, but if you want to, you can support me on Patreon. That helps me financially if you're interested. Also, please subscribe to my video and hit the little bell and share this with someone, please. If you thought it was interesting, maybe they'll find it interesting. Leave me a comment. Tell me if you liked it, if you hated it. Yeah, I love hate comments. It's the best. All right, but seriously, coronavirus is killing a lot of people and getting a lot of people sick and really hurting our economies all over the world too. So I'm sorry that some of you have been affected by this. Well, we've all been affected, but I'm really sorry if you lost anyone from this or someone has gotten sick because of this, because it's just sad. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a good weekend, and I hope we get through this soon and we won't even be talking about it anymore. Okay, bye, stay safe.